There are lots of things competing for your attention.
There's so many good things that we want to do and that
Yeah.
we want to be a part of, but there's more good things and opportunities than there are time in the day.
Life is busy. There are good things competing for your attention. There are not so good things competing for your attention.
The real challenge is, how do we say no to good things in order to carve out space for the best things?
How do we know what to give our time and attention to?
The Lord a long time ago told me, Josh, you don't get any extra points for doing what I didn't ask you to do.
How do we manage those things so we can say our best yes to the things that we actually truly care about?
It necessitates looking at your season of life and on a day by day, week by week, and a basis, deciding intentionally what we're going to say yes to and what we're going to say no to.
We're going to share a little bit about that with you today. How do we be intentional about saying our best yes to the things that we really deeply value? Josh, what does it feel like that looks like in this season for our family?
Yeah, it varies, obviously from season to season, that we've got to reevaluate how to use our time and how to make sure that the good things and the unlimited number of good things that are out there don't squeeze out the best things.
Yeah.
Like in our life, it's not really competing with a bunch of junk. Like we don't waste a lot of time on spending our time on frivolous kinds of things, but there's so many good things that we want to do and that we want to be a part of and we want to say yes to, but there's more good things and opportunities than there are time in the day.
Yeah.
And so the real challenge is, how do we say no to good things in order to carve out space for the best things?
That feels grievous to me. Like, I don't like saying no to good things. That's hard.
Yeah, a good friend of mine drew my attention to it. I was whining to him about the painfulness of the people I wanted to spend time with, the ministry things I wanted to invest in, and just not being able to give as much as I wanted to these different people and things that were all really good stuff. And he framed it like this. He's like, yeah, it's really hard being finite. That we all have to kind of grieve the reality that God made us finite creatures, and that means necessarily having to say no and disappointing people and letting them down, even people you love and care about.
Even when you want to say yes.
Yeah, right. Which is a place that we find ourselves a lot in. And so it necessitates kind of looking at your season of life and on a day by day, week by week, and a basis, and deciding intentionally what we're going to say yes to and what we're going to say no to, and set time aside for those things. Otherwise, by default, our schedule just kind of fills, and oftentimes it fills with the priorities of others versus our priorities. And very easily, the things that God has set as priorities in our life aren't getting the attention that they need. And, the Lord a long time ago told me, Josh, you don't get any extra points for doing what I didn't ask you to do.
Yeah.
And I was in a season where I was doing some really good things for the church that we were a part of. And I loved them and felt passionate about them, but they weren't the things that the Lord wanted me to be spending that time on during that season. And so there was conviction that the Lord was bringing, that I was being disobedient by doing these good things that were super valuable, super good in their nature, but just weren't the right things.
Yeah, and something I think is worth pointing out in that engagement with the Lord is He was able to communicate clearly to you what the important things were. And there were lots of things he didn't communicate with you about because those weren't the important things. He will and is willing and does and is capable, despite our human frailty, despite our lack of maturity, like the things that are important between him and us, he clearly gets through to us. And then we can make a choice about how we engage that, if we will be obedient or not. I think for me, in my story personally, there's often this underlying thread of, well, what if I'm missing something important? What if I'm supposed to be doing something that I am not doing? And then that's going to screw up everything, And the Lord is so sweet to keep bringing me back to, I'm God. I can communicate to you exactly what I want you to know. And when I don't say anything, live your life.
Yeah, there's a real peace that comes from trusting God's ability to be able to speak. And when we're listening, right? There's an intentional process of having your heart before the Lord and being prayerful about how we're spending our time, what we're saying yes to. That's something that we seek the Lord on. And, and he's faithful to make clear to us what we need to know when we need to know it, but which is not always what I want to know when I want to know it.
Often is not.
But I think about like in this season, coming into this new year, some of the things that the Lord put on my heart as it pertains to the busyness of our life. We're creating content, we're running a company, we're speaking, we're writing, got lots of stuff going on.
We have 4 teenagers living at home, basically, almost. She's
and
11.
I really, really felt like the Lord was impressing on me that I needed to be super intentional about this coming year. And make every week count, and to think about the whole breadth of the year and where everything was going to slot in for the priorities that he had for the year. And so there's 2 practical things that that meant for me. One, I got this really kind of cheesy life calendar.
Okay.
That for me serves as a reminder to be intentional. I brought it out here. It lives in my closet, but I brought it out to share that this little calendar has a little dot for every week of the year, and then it has 90 lines here for 90 years of life. And I've filled it in where I'm at so far. And I make a point every Monday to fill in the next dot. And it's a way of reminding me of the finiteness of life and how I want to be intentional in how I use this week for the things that matter to my King and what he wants me to do. And the second thing that I did is I got one of those big full year calendars, one of those big wall calendars that, have a line for each month
You've
of the
been
year.
giving me so much crap over all these years about my little calendars and stuff, all my cute little calendars, and now you got your own cute big calendar.
I've always kept calendars. They usually are digital, and I still keep a digital calendar. But I felt like I needed a way to visualize the whole year because there were big projects that wanted to get done, but also have been really, in the last couple of years especially, feeling the Lord impress on me the importance of this season with my family and with my kids and the ages that they're at, and the need to be really intentional about blocking out space to spend with them and engage with them. Because if I don't be really intentional about that, then life will just eat up that space, and work and all the different demands and things people want from me, from us, just by default fill in that space. And so getting that calendar, putting it up on the wall, then enabled me to begin allocating the pie graph of time, looking at a whole year, a window, and going, how do I put in first and block out first the things that are in regard to my family? And how do I put in the things first that are, things for us to engage in our marriage and together as a couple? And then around that, kind of what are the most important projects for me to get done this year? How do I fill that in around the family time? And that by a process of elimination, I start putting in the most important things first. And suddenly it's like, okay, here's what's left. And there's a real sense of, man, there's not enough time left to do a lot of
Yeah.
things. I'm going to
Yeah.
have to say no to a lot of things in order to be able to say yes to the most important
Yes.
things that I'm blocking out
It
here.
feels painful.
Yeah, it does feel painful, but man, it also felt really good because there's something that feels really bad
Oh, yeah.
about getting to the end of the year.
And being like, oh, I didn't spend my time the way I thought would be the best use
Yeah,
of it.
to have the regrets around the things that were most important didn't get the level of attention that they were supposed to,
Yeah.
and having the regret and sadness around that.
Yeah.
So as painful as it is to say no to good things and good people, things that I would want to say yes to, it's the regret of not allocating time in accordance with our values and the priorities that God set for us is so much more painful.
Yeah. For me, when I look at your weekly punch out calendar, I feel stress.
Mm.
I am not a like competitive, crush it, knock it out, get it done, make the most of it. That's not how God wired my nervous system. So I think historically I have tried things like that and it has just felt almost imprisoning to me, like I'm failing. I can't look at that and be like, oh, another week that I didn't have a perfect week doing what I want to be doing or wish I should have been doing or whatever the situation is. So I think it's just really sweet as you're talking about that. It feels sweet to me to, in this season, be like, my nervous system is not wired for box checking in that way. And that's fine. That's great. I should celebrate how I'm wired. And my intentionality in this season looks different. Like my biggest yes in this season is to it's to whatever God calls me to. It's to being your wife. It's to doing our things together. And then, kind of what I think of as separately, is to being a mom to our kids. That has always been the biggest thing God has called me to, apart from you or the company and anything else we're doing. And so it's just interesting because my best yes for that is to get up early every morning and to be available before our kids go to school. It's my best time of day. I am calm. I'm still waking up a little bit. And so I don't feel the need to go do other tasks. I'm just there with them. And it's not even like I have an agenda. I don't have an agenda. My agenda is to be available so that they know I'm there, so that if they have something or we need to talk about something, they know that they can find me every day at that time of day. I also try, because I have the flexibility, to be available when they get home from school. Depending on what I have going on in the day, that's hit or miss, but I try to make a connection with each of them. I think one of the things that's been a surprise for me is making that intentional one-on-one time connection as they're in and out doing their things has been so powerful. I used to feel guilty about the things I didn't do, but I've actually realized that the things that didn't even feel like were super special or they're intentional, but they're not like bold things that are like, we're going to mark off this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to make sure we have this game night or this family dinner or whatever the situation was. It's just be a steady, faithful presence. And that's where I will do the connecting with you and your kids. And so that's just such a low pressure thing that the Lord put in my heart, but it's been such a good, important thing in the flow of our family. And it's really been freeing to not think, oh, well, I need my family's connection to cross these T's and dot these I's. The Lord's like, hey, what I have you doing, what I've put in your heart, what actually feels good to you is what I want you to be doing. There are other things he asks me to do in that space that are uncomfortable and unpleasant and difficult in the realm of parenting. So I'm not saying that that's not part of it. And some of that is that rhythm of, hey, we need to have these conversations, or hey, we need to do these, leadership management of the home and how we show up in the home together and what our responsibilities are. But those are like kind of my specific most top things that's how I start by organizing my day around those priorities.
Yeah, I appreciate how intentionality looks different between us.
Yes.
And they're both involve rhythms, right? You think about in terms like those times of day, the different days of the week, where you have that rhythm and that space for connecting and being with kids. And I think in terms of like the weeks and the months of the year, and how do I make sure that we're blocking out date time? How do we this winter have been going up snowboarding with the kiddos because we all enjoy snowboarding as a family. And so blocking out those days and making sure the logistics are in place for us to do that as a family. We're planning out this summer, the trips for us to take as a family to go get off grid and have time together and have time of connection, having experiences together as a family that help us connect. And while what we're doing is different, and the part that we play in making sure that our priorities get lived out looks different, kind of week to week, day to day. There's very much an intentionality that shows up in different ways to make that happen. And you do you and allow the Lord and the Spirit to lead you and what that should look like for you. And I do the same on my side, and it works.
Yeah, it works. And it took a dang long time for us to recognize that we didn't need to be like each other for it to work. We actually needed to honor each other's strengths and rhythms and relationship with the Lord and what the Lord was telling each of us. And that was difficult for a long time. So it feels pretty sweet in this season to feel the alignment of that and to recognize, had we been able to recognize earlier your wiring and my wiring and how, we hear opposites attract, and then God uses the weaknesses and strengths of each person. And it's just like that.
Yeah. Earlier in our life, we were always intentional and had this real focus on how do we be mindful and creating structures to honor the things that we felt like were important. But the ways we did that were different, and I didn't have a valuing or appreciation for those differences in a way that created tension and created pain and disconnect for us unnecessarily. And it took maturing, it took work, it took life to kind of grow those things in me, to have more appreciation for the ways in which we're different and how those differences are actually huge blessings to our family in ways that if we were the same, it would leave gaps in our family and in our kids, because we'd be, both broken in the same ways instead of broken in different ways, in ways that we can offer something different to our family and our kids. Yeah. Well, hopefully this is helpful to you as you are kind of setting in on hearing about how we think through and talk through and lean in intentionally in structuring our busy, crazy life in order to make sure that the most important things get the attention that they need and they deserve. So we're cheering you on as you lean on in intentionality in your story.